everybody, and welcome to this tutorial on how to use edible Flex Frost fabric sheets from Icing Images. I'm going to show you how we are going to make lace with these lace mats here and the Flex Frost sheets. All you need is a little bit of water, doesn't matter if it's cold or warm, and a straight edge scraper. Now I'm using this one from Esther Cakes only because it's super long, it's a straight edge, and it's really durable. Sometimes if you use some of the plastic scrapers, they're not as durable, and as you're holding this flat to your mold, maybe it won't be exactly flat. So we are using this metal scraper. You can get this at esthercakes.com. If you use my coupon code LHCakery, that is LHCAKERY, at her website, you'll get a discount. So here we go. I've chosen 3 different lace molds. Now, I did a little demo at LA CookieCon this past weekend, and I showed you how to use one of these molds. I don't think I used this exact mold. I used something similar. I don't know if I have it here. Well, we'll just use these. So I have these 3 mats. Now, as I was explaining at the demo, some mats are more flexible than others. I think this one's a little bit more sturdy. You can tell if you're folding it in half and it's a little more difficult versus this. You see how this folds really easily and this one's a little bit more difficult. It's just thicker. Probably made out of a different kind of rubber or silicone. I usually do, or I used to do, lace with fondant. To me, it's just what worked because I've tried other types of lace making materials, some that are pre-mixed, some that you have to mix. You put it in the mold, you let it dry, and then you get your lace. Well, for me, it didn't work so well. I was able to get it in the lace. It looked beautiful. It just would never fully be able to come in. It would never fully dry. And I even tried the oven trick where you put it at the very lowest setting, leave it in there a couple hours. I've even did that and then left it all night long and it still wouldn't come out. So far, the only thing that worked for me is these Flex Frost sheets. These are from Icing Images, and we are going to be using this shimmer sample pack. It's so quick and so easy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I put it in there, and then we're gonna come back to it. So I will hold this so that you can see Icing Images. I will fold this so you guys can see the name of the product the whole time while I'm making it. We are going to use, oh, and you also need a pair of scissors. This is just to cut our flexible fabric sheet. I think I'm going to use this pearl color. Do you see how pretty this is? It's got a nice shimmer to it. Let's see if I can put the light on if it gets a little bit better for you to see. See how this is pretty shimmery. So we're gonna use that. There's a bunch of different colors. This is the rose gold. This is regular gold. And then the pearl that we're using, I'll show you the gold. It's a bigger, beautiful sheet. So we're going to use this one, which is like a pearl. So what you wanna do is just choose which one you wanna use. I think I wanna try to use this one. Oh, so like I was saying before, I usually use fondant to make my lace. So for example, this one would work well because the silicone is a lot thicker. It's a little bit more durable. So basically I would just put my fondant here and I would use my rolling pin and just roll it really hard and that would work. But for some like this, it's really hard to get fondant in here. So Flex Frost sheets is perfect for this. So I'm gonna use this one to start and then maybe we can use some of these other molds here, but we'll use this one first. So it really doesn't matter what your work surface is. I'm just working on a Daddios mat. This mat is like a non-stick. It's really great. It's a really great work surface. It's really easy to clean up. So that's the one I'm going to be using. So just take your Flex Frost sheet, and I'm just going to cut it kind of to the size of this mold. So this is it's about the right size. You can trim it if you'd like. I'm just going to trim the edge off. We'll probably end up using that later. You can trim it with the backing on. That's what I'm doing. And then it's so easy to peel it off. So you don't really want to take the backing off until you know you're going to use this. Sometimes you can get away with just using one sheet. Sometimes I end up using two. It just depends on how thick the cavities are, how deep it goes. This one's not too deep. This one's not very deep at all, but you can tell. That's also going to depend on your drying time. The deeper the cavity is, the deeper it goes, the longer you're going to need to dry it. So we are going to trim this one also, so it's about the same. So set those aside. I'm going to use this one first. So it's so easy. You just peel the backing off, and you can see how flexible it is. You see that? This you don't need. This is just the back of it. Throw that away. And then if there's any part that doesn't have the shimmer on, just trim that off, because you don't want to make your lace and you're trying to get this pretty pearl color and then a little tiny bit of it is white. So just throw that away. You're going to see how easy this is. Make sure you have your scraper ready, your mold, and your cup of water. This is all you do. I'm gonna put that there. Put it in the water and just run it through. Make sure it's wet. Lay it on top of your mold and just let it sit for a second. So we'll see if it's starting to work. So you see, if you run your finger over it, it's gonna start to take the shape of your mold. Just run your finger over it, and you can kind of see, do you see how it's kind of seeping into those little crevices there? Now now it's really cold right now, so I don't know if this is affecting it, because the one I did, the demo at LA Cookie Con the other day, it just went right in. Now it's a little bit cold right now. It's a little bit cold in my house, but you see how it's kind of starting to take the shape. Now we will take our scraper. It's starting to get like a little bubble right there. That's totally fine. Take your scraper, as long as you have a straight edge. I like to start at the top, and then I'm just gonna pull down. We're just scraping it. All right, so that's totally normal there, how, it's pulling some of it away. Just go right back over it. You see how it's already working? This one is, the cavities aren't that deep, so it's working really nicely. And you see how you still have some of that Flex Frost there that's wet. You're gonna keep using that. Keep using it. Try to press it into the crevices that don't have it. So you see right here how it doesn't have any. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take an offset spatula, and I'm gonna try to just scrape that off and put it right back here. Now, if you don't have enough, which this one I really don't have that much, I can use some of those pieces of the sheets that I cut off already. Make sure you're putting enough pressure here. If you don't put enough pressure, you're going to have little pieces in the middle that still have a very, very, very thin coating of this. And so that's not gonna be good when you pull it off. Your lace is still gonna kind of be connected in the spots where it's supposed to be open. I just got a good amount off of that scrape. I'm just adding it back over here because this part needs a little help filling in these cavities here. Right here needs a little bit more. Go ahead and add it. The great thing about this one is that it takes a while to dry. So you can come back in here and add a little bit more. See, I'm just lightly scraping and then I'm adding it over here. So if you see any spots, that's all you do. We're gonna go ahead and add some over here. And there's a couple of spots over there that I'm gonna add it to. Right here needs a little bit more loving. Right here. Oh, right there. Okay. Right there. I think that's the last spot. Oh, I see one more. Let me see if I can scrape enough. There's just a tiny spot right here. The only reason why we keep going back and adding it in here is to make sure that when you pull your lace out that it's one solid piece so that you don't have holes. Just try to keep it flat. And you can also pick it up and look at it. Yeah, so I'm gonna add a little bit more in here. I don't know if you can see that. It goes down a little bit. I want it to be completely flat. So totally easy fix. Take your water and we're gonna take this sheet again, peel off the backing. And we're just gonna get this wet. Lay it on top. So that's what's good about having these little extra pieces. Just keep those around. Sometimes if the mold is really, really deep, you probably need to go back in and add another full sheet. But for now, one sheet and then the tiny edge is working. You can even use your offset spatula to kind of get that in there. Just like that, just to start. You see how it kind of just turns into a liquid. That's what's great about this is there's no mixing required. It's already done for you. So actually, let's try it this way. The center part looks like it just needs a little bit more love. Just need to press a little bit harder. There we go. Oh, right now it's coming together beautifully. Okay, just go over it again. If you can see that there's these tiny little parts that just need to be scraped off. Okay, come around at different angles like that. Just probably needs one more final scrape. Make sure this part isn't attached anymore. If you can see, there's like a little tiny bit. And you can also clean off the edge of your straight edge if you think that that's kind of adding more instead of taking away. Oh yeah, that's great. That worked really well. Okay, so just clean off the edge. Sometimes if I'm doing multiple molds, I'm just trying to keep this. Scrape off as much as you can and then you can clean it with, you know, a napkin or a paper towel. So I think this is good. Great. So if you can take a look here, it's all in there. I'm gonna use a different mold just so you guys can see how it works in different molds. Every mold is different. Some are more flexible than others. Let's go ahead and do, let's see how this one comes out. We'll try this one. This one's very, very flexible. So if you remember, that one was very hard to bend. And this one's super easy, super flexible. So with those, it's a little bit more difficult, but I'll show you how I do it. So it's the same thing as before. Take your Flex Frost sheet, peel off the backing, throw this away, and we're gonna dip this in the water. So this water gets it very, very, very flexible, very pliable, and almost like melts it. So we're putting it right on top. I'm gonna get another napkin. So eventually it goes from this paper and kind of turns into a paste with water. Do you see that? So that's what makes the lace. And just give it a second here. So see how it starts to get a little milky. So the water just combines with it. And that's okay if there's these little bubbles and stuff like that. Totally fine. It's just gonna essentially melt inside. So again, we're gonna take our straight edge, just clean off the edge. And also when you're done with your scraper, make sure you wash it, because you will have some residue from the Flex Frost sheets. So, you know, it turns into this paste. And if you have this paste on your scraper, it's gonna kind of dry and stick to your scraper. So just make sure you go ahead and give that a good wash. Okay, so now you can kind of see it's sticking to your mold. At first, it kind of does look weird when you're scraping it and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this isn't working, but it really does. You just have to go over it a couple times. So let's see, with this mold, yeah, this mold's a little bit more difficult. I'm putting a little bit more pressure, and then I'm going to flip it around so you can see this one, a lot came off. So very different from the mold. Every mold is going to be, you know, different, a little bit easier. The last one we did was kind of easy. So just go ahead and turn it around and kind of try to stick in what you have left over. So you can even scrape it off like this if you want. You can do this. If this is easier, go right ahead. Just try to fill in the spots that kind of came off when we were scraping. And then we're gonna go back in here with our scraper. Sometimes you'll see some pieces like that that still look like they haven't fully melted. They will. You just have to give it some time. Enough water. If it has enough water, it's gonna melt. So it looks like all of the crevices are filled in right now. I'm just gonna try to clean my scraper off. All right, and let's try this again. This is the mold that's very flexible. So we're gonna try and see how. Beautiful, beautiful. It's working really well. So this mold, since there's not very much area that is going to be mold versus this one, see how this one, there's a lot of it. That's the mold. This one has a lot of really open spaces. That's probably why we're getting a lot off, but that's totally fine. If you're doing another mold, save it. And if you're not, just toss it. Now, I'm trying to see if there's any areas that need it filled in, like right here. Needs a tiny bit. Where else? I think that's good. It looks beautiful. It's such a pretty mold that can only be used, for me, with Flex Frost sheets. Fondant just does not work. I can't get it into those tiny little crevices and get it to come out in one piece. So here we go. Putting pressure. Trying to do one smooth motion, and that's fine if you got to come back in and clean it up, which is what I will do. This is enough for another little tiny mold, or one of those pretty butterflies. If you've seen those pretty butterfly molds, those are really pretty. So come back in, just gonna apply a little bit more pressure here. And I did accidentally pull a little bit of tiny bit of the Flex Frost out right there. So that's easy, easy, easy touch up. Just put a little bit right there, and we're just gonna scrape it once more. Okay. Perfect. And then if you want, you can just clean the edges like this, because those are gonna turn into your edible fabric. If you leave it there, it's just gonna, it'll peel right off, but if you're gonna do another mold, just scrape it off so you can reuse it. So that's these two really pretty molds. So there's this one, and then this one that we just made. Just clean your work surface. Otherwise, these ones will also turn into the edible fabric. Clean those off of your mat. Okay, so then there's these two, made with Flex Frost edible fabric sheets by Icing Images. And I will be back shortly to show you the reveal. Stay tuned. Hello, so we are back after letting the Icing Images Flex Frost sit overnight. I did check it at the 4-hour mark, and it felt like it did set. However, when you're going to remove it out of these molds, you just want to make sure it's super dry and it comes out easily. It still felt a little tacky, not necessarily wet, but just a little tacky, and that could be because of the weather. It's a little bit cold and rainy here, so I let these all sit overnight. I did check them at about 4 hours, and then again at 6 hours, and they seemed okay, but I just wanted to wait until today. So you can kind of see when they'll start pulling away naturally from the mold. They'll just start pulling away from the edge, and that's great because then you're not gonna fight with these. I was talking about the molds and how some of them are more flexible than others. Now this is the one I used at LA Cookie Con, and I couldn't find this yesterday, but I found it. And I wanted to show you, this one's extremely flexible. So this one is not laying flat. The sides actually are coming up of the actual mold. Let me see if I can show you here, if this even makes sense. See how it's kind of rounded versus this one, which kept its shape, and it's still very, very straight. It's still very straight. But they've been sitting overnight, so now I will show you how to remove them. You can either use a tapered offset spatula like this one, or you can just use, you know, a flat edge scraper. This one's just a Fat Daddios offset scraper, and a flat straight edge scraper. And there's a bunch of different ones I did here. I also did this butterfly that we were talking about yesterday. Sometimes if they're small, you can take it out this way, but then sometimes I turn them upside down. So we can turn this one upside down, see if it releases easily. You always want to kind of look at it from the side to make sure you're getting all of it out and no pieces are still stuck in there. So this is the first piece. So this is the Flex Frost. And as you can see, it is flexible. It's been sitting all night. It's kind of cold in here, about 60, 62 degrees, which is a little bit cold for inside. But these are great. You can paint it. You can airbrush it. You can paint it with, you know, poppy paints, which are edible paints. Maybe even gel colors. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think those would work, but it's very flexible, durable. You don't have to worry about this really ripping, putting it on a cake or even cupcakes. And you don't have to put this in a Ziploc container. You can just leave it out. If you wanted to maybe make sure that it didn't lose its shape at all, you can put it in a Ziploc baggie or container. I do have a cake I want to show you that I made a while ago. Now this cake was made about 1.5 years ago, And I did 2 different techniques. You can find these tutorials on the Icing Images website. So this is 1.5 years ago, and these are still flexible. I actually kind of squished this by accident in my car when I was going to LA CookieCon, but as you can see, you can still move these. These are still flexible. If this was fondant, you would be breaking all of these. So these are still flexible after 1.5 years. And these are some of these little cute rolled flowers that I made. These are also still flexible, but I don't want to push on them too much, just so that they can keep their shape. But it's 1.5 years, not covered. So this is just out air drying. And then this is the one we made at LA CookieCon this past weekend. So it still has some flexibility to it. It's great. You don't have to worry about it ripping. If I had made this out of fondant, this would all be cracking. Fondant or gum paste, this would all be cracking right now. So it holds its shape really well. So that's the first one. We got this butterfly out of this silicone mold. And remember that your drying times are gonna vary based on your climate, humidity, and how deep these crevices are in your molds. I think every mold is gonna be different. So then let's try this one. I like to flip it upside down, and then you can take either a straight edge or this tapered offset spatula. I will try this straight edge. So I'm just gently peeling it back. And this, putting this straight edge here just kind of helps me to hold it gently against my work surface to make sure I'm not pulling. I want to be pulling on the mat versus pulling on my lace. And it looks like it's coming out beautifully. So it just sat overnight. No oven needed. And there you have it. This is Flex Frost Sheet from Icing Images. We have 2 more in the molds that I want to try to reveal just to see how they come out. Every mold is different. This one has a lot more open space, so there's hardly any lace. So we'll see if this one's easy to come out. And then this one I cannot wait for. This is one of my favorite molds. It's really beautiful. It's really durable. And then this is the one that we just removed. So I used a pearl. It has like a pearl shimmer. This is the Flex Frost with pearl. You can kind of see it shimmering a little bit. It's very flexible, so you don't have to worry about when you're going to attach it to your cake. I used to do lace out of fondant, and when you're going to adhere it to your cake, whether it's buttercream or fondant, sometimes you're going to put it on your cake, and the fondant's just rolling like this. And with this Flex Frost, it's so great. Easily put it on. Very, 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 very pretty and very easy. You don't have to worry about it falling all over the place or sticking. You can easily just spritz your cake with some water. I like to put water in a little tiny spray bottle, or you can also use edible glue. I sell edible glue on my website, lhcakery.com. Has a lot of different purposes that you can use it for. So we got that one out. Now let's try this one. So again, turning it upside down. And I'm just peeling the edge just to make sure I get the whole edge up first before I put my straight edge there. Oh yeah, this one, it looks like it's coming out great. Beautiful. I'm just peeling back this mat versus peeling the lace. I don't want this lace to break or rip. Oh, that's so pretty. Let's see if we can get this up. And it's flexible. So you can either put this on the bottom of a cake. That's gorgeous. You see that? Or this can also go on the top of a cake. It can be really gorgeous. You would just glue that in place with water or edible glue. You see that? So gorgeous. And they're so flexible. You don't have to worry about these ripping like the fondant ones would. If it does happen to rip, say in a little spot, like say one of these little tiny ones ripped, which I'm actually pressing on and it's not ripping. That's how great this is. If it did happen to rip, it's totally fine. Once you adhere it to your cake, you really won't be able to tell at all. You can use these for a lot of different things. You can use them for cookies, for cupcake toppers, cake decorations. The options are endless. And then we are going to try this one. This one might be a little bit of a challenge, but we will try it. I'm gonna get this one out of the way so you can see. All right, we are turning this one upside down. A little bit of the Flex Frost will kind of stick to the back of your mold, and that's totally fine. It comes right off with some water. I like to wash my molds with hot soapy water. All right, so I'm very carefully peeling back the very edge. Very, very carefully. This one seems a little bit more fragile than the others. So I'm gonna show this one a little extra care. And this is not because of the Flex Frost, it is because of the mold. It's very delicate. So this one looks like this would be a little bit difficult with maybe any medium you use, not just, you know, Flex Frost or really any kind of edible lace that you use, just because of the type of mold has a lot of little crevices here. So it looks like it's coming out pretty good. We are halfway through. Just gently, so I'm just putting a little tiny bit of pressure here while I pull this away. Just a little bit of pressure, not too much. I just want to make sure I'm peeling this mold away. If you try to pull the lace away, you could potentially rip it. Oh, it came out wonderfully. Yeah, this one is a little bit difficult. I wouldn't probably be able to use anything in this other one except for this Flex Frost. And then you don't have to worry about it ripping. It's super flexible, super durable. That's the back and that's the front. Looks pretty similar. So you see here, this little part did get ripped. This little tiny one, but once you put it on your cake, you won't be able to tell because they'll just lay flat to each other. You see that? You can't even really tell. That's beautiful. So there you have it. This is edible fabric sheet. It's called Flex Frost and it's from Icing Images. Please let me know if you have any questions and happy lace making. Bye-bye.